morning. Welcome to the Greg Belfrage Show. It's great to have you along this morning. Oh, it's one of those mornings where you kind of feel like there's not a solid connection going. You know what I mean? Not all circuits are firing. That's what this morning feels like. So let's see how it goes.
And will not tolerate a loser. Americans play to win all the time. I don't believe in the no-win scenario.
Good morning, my friend. The marketplace of ideas is open. Welcome to the Greg Belfrage Show, Thursday, April 24th. So, Vladimir Zelensky apparently saying he's rejecting the peace deal that the Trump administration has been trying to work out between Russia and Ukraine. This is a very big story this morning. You were just hearing that on Fox News. And planned peace talks in London then were downgraded. You had Marco Rubio saying that he would not be attending that. And now Zelensky apparently clashing again with the president. And he says that emotions ran high in London. The president is calling the key position on Crimea inflammatory. This was the president on True Social yesterday. This was yesterday morning. President Trump said, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky is boasting on the front page of the Wall Street Journal that Ukraine will not legally recognize the occupation of Crimea. There's nothing to talk about here. And the president said this statement is very harmful to the peace negotiations with Russia, in that Crimea was lost years ago under the auspices of President Barack Obama. He says Barack Hussein Obama, as he usually does. So he's saying under President Obama, this is not even a point of discussion. Nobody is asking Zelensky to recognize Crimea as Russian territory. But if he wants Crimea, why didn't they fight for it 11 years ago when it was handed over to Russia without a shot being fired? The area also houses, for many years before the Obama handover, major Russian submarine bases. It's inflammatory statements like Zelensky's that make it so difficult to settle this war. He has nothing to boast about. The situation for Ukraine is dire. He can have peace, or he can fight for another 3 years before losing the whole country. President said, I have nothing to do with Russia, but have much to do with wanting to save, on average, 5,000 Russian and Ukrainian soldiers a week who are dying for no reason whatsoever. The statement made by Zelensky today will do nothing but prolong the killing field, and nobody wants that. We are very close to a deal, but the man with no cards to play should now finally get it done, capital letters. I look forward to being able to help Ukraine and Russia get out of this complete and total mess that would have never started if I were president. So that was the president yesterday on True Social. You had the vice president saying it is time for Russia and Ukraine to either agree to a U.S. peace proposal or for the United States to walk away from this process. That is what we heard from Secretary of State Marco Rubio recently. I shared that story with you last week. Marco Rubio saying, we're not going to see some progress. This needs to be taken care of in days. He said, if we don't see some progress here in days, it's the United States will just have to walk away. And, is that going to wind up happening? It remains to be seen. It's a volatile situation. It's what it boils down to, I think. Very volatile situation between Russia and Zelensky, and part of the volatility is coming, I think, from President Zelensky. He said on Tuesday, Ukraine would never cede Crimea to Russia And then that's what I took, and that's why you saw the president's response on True Social. So it's kind of where things stand. According to reports last week in Paris, Washington's negotiators put forward an outline of a deal to end the conflict, which would include America's recognition of Russia's ownership of Crimea, which Moscow has controlled since 2014. And this is what Donald Trump was saying. And now you got Zelensky out there talking about that we will never recognize Crimea as Russian territory. We've been doing that for years. What is he talking about? I think this guy is a little bit, I don't know what's motivating President Zelensky, but obviously that is a very big story this morning. Also, it was pretty cool yesterday. The president had a number of wounded veterans in the Oval Office yesterday. And they were there. There were some great photos of these wounded veterans and the president together. And there was it was a very respectful meeting. There was a lot of laughter at times. And so the president had asked a veteran about his "Let's Go Brandon" sticker. And so the president appeared to notice the sticker, and he said, "Whose picture is on there?" And the veteran said, "That's Joe Biden." And it says, "Let's Go Brandon." And the whole Oval Office, everybody who's there breaks out laughter. Let's go Brandon. And then Trump is among those laughing. He says, "That's great." The president said. So I don't know if he had seen those previously. "Let's go Brandon." Now remember where that came from. That was during that NASCAR interview with a reporter. The crowd was chanting, F Joe Biden, repeatedly chanting F Joe Biden. And the reporter thought they were chanting "Let's go Brandon." Remember? Oh, that's still funny. At least to me. Cracks me up. So the president meeting with all of these veterans. Go to the president's True Social account. And you can see some really great photos. And that's a big story. FoxNews.com has the story about the "Let's Go Brandon." You'll find that there this morning. Also, while we're talking about Russia, CNN has this story saying that Vladimir Putin has gifted Donald Trump a portrait of the president, and it was the painting was delivered by Steve Witkoff. He's the president's envoy, and it's the one with the president with his fist raised in the air. It's a painting of the president, fist raised in the air. It's an iconic image, I think, for many of us. And so this was a painting that was commissioned by the Kremlin, and it shows Trump raising his fist on stage after the failed assassination attempt. And the artist, who is one of Russia's most famous artists, according to the Kremlin, he said, he was interviewed by CNN, and he said, "It was important to me to show the blood, the scar, and his bravery during the attempt on his life. He didn't break down or become afraid, but raised his arm to show he is one with America and will bring back what it deserves." Now, that's a Russian artist who painted this. And Vladimir Putin gifted the portrait to Donald Trump. Also, I know that's not like big, huge news. I think it's important news, you know, things that you're certainly not going to hear you know, on most major newscasts. Also, border czar Tom Homan yesterday slammed the ongoing attempts to have Kilmar Abrego Garcia return to the United States. And he brought up the case of Lincoln Riley. And he said of Garcia, he said, I think he's got plenty of due process. He got more due process than Lincoln Riley got. So he was answering questions outside of the White House. And Holman said, I stand by, we did the right thing for the safety and security of this country, he's saying, and we stand by it. I think we're keeping President Trump's promise to the American people who voted him into office on the number one issue, secure the border. And by the way, which folks are absolutely loving that in the deportations. They're not loving the economy so much, polls are showing. But on that issue of the deportations and the border, wow. The support is just absolutely incredible. So Holman talking about that, secure the border, remove public safety threats and national security threats. That's what we keep doing. And he said there comes a point when one needs to ask, are we favoring America or the terrorists? I find it incredible that there's all this push for more and more and more due process, more process for these designated terrorists, when in fact, no one asked for due process when they cross the border. It's a great point. You know, now they're in the country. Now we got to have all this due process, and many of them accused of crimes in this country and horrific crimes in some cases. So they're now suddenly due process. Where was the due process when they came into the country? Great question, I think, that Tom Homan is asking. He said, every time we arrest one of these people and remove them, the country gets much safer. New York Post has a story this morning about some of the tumult in the Trump administration between Elon Musk and Scott Bessent. They apparently, now keep in mind, Elon Musk and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. New York Post is reporting that they had a fairly heated argument in the White House, according to a couple of sources. So the conversation was about the IRS, and it got so tense, Axios first reported, the two men got in each other's faces in earshot of President Trump. So one said Elon was shouting and rambling, and Scott just wasn't putting up with it. Second source said the fight was fundamentally about the different vision that the two men have for reform, and Musk taking a more aggressive approach. Now, here's the thing that came. I don't know if you had the same kind of thought, but I would say, as I was, reading about this earlier this morning, the thought that came to my mind is, can you imagine during the founding of the country what those arguments would have been like, right? The arguments about, what direction you go, what do you do? We know at times that those were pretty passionate discussions, and emotions run high at times. And essentially that's what folks are saying here, is that, yeah, they raised their voices. They did it in earshot of the president. What, should they hide it from the president? I mean, I would rather, wouldn't you rather that if they're having a disagreement and it gets, they raising their voices, Wouldn't you rather they do it in front of Trump and that he hears the exchange and knows what's going on? So he can weigh that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, are we all supposed to be always, now, if I went to the White House, it'd be something different. If you and I were in the meeting with the president, and it would be, but these are close advisors of the president, and, they're having a conversation and they're bringing up the issue, right? For him to consider. The decision's always his. Interesting. So they say that Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick was also present for the conversation. He seemed to take the side of Elon Musk. And so Carolyn Levitt was asked about this. She said, it's no secret President Trump has put together a team of people who are incredibly passionate about the issues impacting our country. And she said, disagreements are a normal part of any healthy policy process. How do you disagree with that? But that story has got some legs this morning, again, from the New York Post. Also, there is a poll of young Americans conducted by the Institute of Politics at Harvard showing that while President Trump's overall approval has remained stable, support for Democrats is eroding. Young people are not particularly impressed with Democrats in Congress. Do you know a podcaster, Tim Pool? I know some of you do. Tim Pool was an incredibly sharp guy, I think. Incredibly sharp guy. He was in the new media seat at the White House briefing this week. And Breitbart writes about it. I'm going to have the audio of that for you coming up later in the program today, and we'll get your reaction, because I watched it and wow. He just eviscerates the legacy media. I wanted to stand up and cheer. So I'll run that audio for you later in the program this morning, because he really goes after them. In fact, Breitbart writes about it. John Nolte at Breitbart says it was so beautiful. And he's talking about the rest of the media who's all there. He said it was so beautiful, and those lying degenerates had no option but to sit there and take it. So John Nolte's piece at Breitbart is just really great. Another poll, and I mentioned this earlier. 56% of likely voters say very important to deport migrant criminals. Only 5% say it's not at all important. Who are those nuts? This is Rasmussen reports. So you got 56% of likely voters say very important to deport these migrant criminals. Now, this is not a big story, but it really caught my attention. And we're going to talk about it coming up in a little over a half hour from now. New York Post has got a story on Pete Davidson, this comedian Pete Davidson from Saturday Night Live, known by many and for his really high-profile relationships. And he is having over 200 tattoos removed from his body. He's got over 200 tattoos. And he's having them removed. And he's talking about this. He said he started getting tattoos he says, I started during COVID in 2020, and it's going to take me another 10 years, he said, to remove all these tattoos. He said, my arms are pretty much gone. My hands and neck are gone, he said. He still has ink to remove on his torso and his back. And he said it's a pretty horrible process. One can only imagine. He said it's like putting your arm on a grill and burning off a layer, and then you got to do maintenance and let it heal properly, and it's pretty tough. It sucks. I'm not going to lie, he said. He said at the time that he got the tattoos, he wasn't taking care of himself. And so now you see him without the tattoos. I mean, he looks awesome, honestly. So that is worth talking about. Tattoos, and if you ever got them, you think it's a mistake. For those of you who I have no tattoos, never wanted tattoos, have not ever, not ever gotten one, just never felt motivated. My kids, though, I think all three of my kids have tattoos. And I see them adding the number of tattoos that they're getting, and I'm my son in particular, not my thing, but it's his choice. It's worth talking about what Pete Davidson is undergoing right now. Incredibly painful process trying to remove all those tattoos. So we'll talk about that coming up this morning. That's a look at the big stories today. Thanks for starting your day with us. It's always great to have you along. Currently in Sioux Falls, rain and 46 at 6:27. This hour of our show brought to you by the Window Shop of Mitchell, offering custom windows starting at $99 a month.
Camp and Robbins, weekdays at 2.
Oh, no, did I go? I talked too much.
107.9.
The Kello Hotline is sponsored by Tires.
Okay, let's move one of those.
An automotive store.
For years, Senator John Thune has been a strong supporter of America's small businesses, recognizing that they need a level playing field.
Talk too much, go too long.
Thank you, Senator Thune, for leading the fight to protect the 20% tax
There we
reduction,
go.
empowering South Dakota's small businesses to
There we go. That'll bring us back in line here.
Visit smallbusinessproduction.com to learn how you can support the effort to stop the massive tax hike on small businesses. Paid for by the National Federation of Independent.
Yeah, those photos of Pete Davidson now without the tattoos. Man, he looks great.
Windstorms tearing down power lines, wildfires scorching the grid, and severe storms leaving thousands in the dark. That's why smart families are turning to the Grid Doctor 3300 from MyPatriotSupply.com. It's the only solar generator on the market with built-in EMP protection. Quiet, fume-free, rechargeable with the sun, and powerful enough to run refrigerators, freezers, and medical devices when the grid fails. But it's not just for emergencies. Use the Grid Doctor 3300 from MyPatriotSupply.
But I always wonder,
Keep your spring
the-
advantage charged.
I guess I'm not at all bothered by a small number of tattoos or modest, tattoos. I've never found a good number of tattoos in any way attractive. It's not to me. But to each his own, right? I mean, and we all have different opinions. We'll talk about that coming up this morning. 200 tattoos removed. Oh, what a horrible process that's got to be.
For tonight, scattered showers, low in the low 40s. Tomorrow, becoming partly sunny, a little bit warmer, high back.
And in Sioux Falls at 6:30, we've got rain and 46. Fox News Radio coming up fast. Then we'll check in with Joe Bowman in the Kello.com News Center. A settlement has been reached in a lawsuit between South Dakota and the NCAA over name, image, and likeness. Joe will have details on that story coming up. You're listening to the Greg Belfrage Show on Kello.
Kyiv overnight.
President Volodymyr Zelensky has cut short his trip to South Africa to return home after the strikes. Zelensky said 70 missiles.
Okay, made it through one segment without crashing the car into the weeds.
In London. That's Fox's Lucas Thomas.
Let's hope I can maintain that.
Zelensky for refusing to surrender Crimea as part of a possible deal. And the president's going to meet with the Norwegian prime minister today to talk about the war and trade, as new Fox polls show only about 33% of Americans support Trump's tariff plan.
President Donald Trump's approval rating right now is at 44%, down 5 points from a month ago. He still earns strong approval on one of his key campaign issues. This poll shows 55% of respondents like what he's done on border security.
Fox's Gernal Scott, America's listening to Fox News.
Weather brought to you by Infinity Sedation Dentistry, Sioux Falls. They fix your teeth while you sleep.
Hello News Time, 6:31. I'm Joe Bowman in the Kello.com News Center. A settlement has been reached in a lawsuit between South Dakota and the NCAA over name, image, and likeness, or NIL. Attorney General Marty Jackley made the announcement yesterday. He says it reduces the amount of money Division I schools will have to pay towards the NCAA proposed $2.8 billion settlement of federal class action lawsuits. The NCAA will also stipulate the creation of a women's basketball performance fund. As part of the settlement, South Dakota will now dismiss its lawsuit. Jackley says the savings are a win for Division I athletics in the state. Summit Carbon Solutions says it isn't ready to give up on building a carbon capture pipeline through South Dakota. That, despite a 2-1 ruling by the Public Utilities Commission late Tuesday to deny the company's request for more time to negotiate with landowners and develop a plan to find an acceptable route with willing landowners. Commissioner Christy Fegan led the effort to deny the request, saying the opposition to the project makes it unworkable.
We have strict laws at the commission, and we have processes at the commission, and we have to vote on everything in a deciding docket based on laws and facts and evidence. Summit's route is uncertain.
According to the Dakota Scout, a spokesperson for Summit Carbon Solutions says they will be refiling an application for a smaller project. He also says the company does not intend to fight a new state law barring eminent domain for CO2 pipeline projects. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem will speak at Dakota State's graduation next month, but the pick is drawing some backlash from some students who oppose her stance on immigration. SDSU's Student Senate is planning to protest at the event. And a Sioux Falls restaurant owner is donating nearly 2,600 chickens to a local food bank. Gabriel Rivero, owner of the Argentinian restaurant Tarquin, says it's his way of giving back to the community. The donation is going to the Faith Temple Food Giveaway, which feeds about 4,000 people weekly. From the Kello.com News Center, I'm Joe Bowman.
The news never stops. Kello News Talk 1320 107.9.
Areas of rain will continue today in the Sioux Falls area. Our high temperature at 52 with an east wind at 15 to 30 miles per hour. Scattered showers tonight, low temperature in the low 40s, and then tomorrow, turning partly sunny with a high temperature of 64. Weather for Saturday, some sunshine at 66. From the Storm Center at Timberland TV, I'm meteorologist Brian Karstens.
Learn to listen and listen to learn. Kello News Talk 1320 107.9.
With the death of Pope Francis, there are 135 Roman Catholic cardinals qualified to vote for the next pope. So we asked the leading AI chatbots for their prediction. I'm Kim Commando for Fast Growing Trees. Spring's here. Get an additional 15% off your first purchase when you use code Kim at checkout. FastGrowingTrees.com, code Kim. AI is pretty good at making predictions, just not for the Pope. Both Google's Gemini and Musk Grok favor Vatican Secretary of State, Italian Cardinal Pietro Parolin, but both list 8 other contenders. Meanwhile, the popular ChatGPT gives a slight edge to Philippine Cardinal Luis Antonio Tangele, but close behind, once again, Cardinal Parolin. China's DeepSeek can't decide between Austria's Archbishop and, once again, Cardinal Parolin. Meanwhile, Microsoft's Copilot refuses to pick anyone. Instead, it asks you to tell it who you think it'll be. Start your day with my free newsletter. It takes just 5 minutes at getkim.com. Did you know that Fast Growing Trees is America's largest online nursery? Yup, over 6,000 varieties of indoor and outdoor plants, plus more than 2 million happy customers. Whether you're after fruit trees, evergreens, houseplants, or something unique, they've got it all. No matter what your yard looks like or what your dreaming could be, Fast Growing Trees has you covered. I ordered an avocado tree for my backyard, and it's perfect. No green thumb, no problem. On top of their Alive and Thrive guarantee, they offer free plant consultation forever. Save 90% on landscaping costs when you DIY and get plants delivered directly from fastgrowingtrees.com right now. Save up to 50% on select plants. And as a Kim Commando listener, you get an additional 15% off your first purchase when you use code Kim at checkout. That's an additional 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com using code Kim. That's fastgrowingtrees.com for an additional 15% off using the code Kim.
The Kim Commando Show, live Saturday mornings at 9. Kello News Talk 1320, 107.9.
The Kello Hotline is sponsored by Tires, with 2 locations to make sure you have the proper traction this winter.
Bring charm from the outdoors into your home with Renewal by Andersen picture and combination windows. Optimizing a beautiful view and light in the bedroom, kitchen, or living room from ABC Seamless of Sioux Falls. Call 605-646-2667 today. That's ABC Seamless.
Get your divots and your giggle quotas filled by witnessing the most action-packed one-woman show in existence with comedian Becky Robinson on her Entitled Housewife Tour. Friday, April 25th. Doors to the Royal Room open at 7 p.m. and the laughs begin at 8. Reserve your premium seats now. If you haven't heard of Becky Robinson, prepare to be introduced to a tidal wave of side-splitting laughter at Royal River Casino. See website for complete details. Royal River Casino must be 21.
The International Fellowship of Christians and Jews has supported and will continue to support the people of Israel with life-saving security essentials. Your gift today will help save lives by providing bomb shelters, armored security vehicles and ambulances, firefighting equipment, flak jackets and bulletproof vests, and so much more. Give a gift to bless Israel and her people by visiting supportifcj.org. That's one word, supportifcj.org.
Trust and Will knows that we'll all eventually need a will. How about right now? Trust and Will makes creating your will easy, like while you're lounging on the couch easy. Trust and Will is designed by attorneys but customized by you, and all documents are state secure. Find your plan at
I'm reading your comments here, guys, about the Let's Go Brandon. I don't think the reporter made that up. You know, you're hearing, you know, the crowds chanting. I don't know that it, you know, you're in the midst of interviewing somebody and that's going on in the background. Just as somebody who's on the air, your focus is on what you're doing. It's not on everything else. You know what I mean? So it would be easy to mistake. She's visiting with Brandon and she thinks, she hears part of it that she knows they're chanting and she believes they're saying, let's go Brandon. I don't know, because you can't cover that up. I mean, you would have to know that you can't. People know what's actually being chanted. So I wouldn't be so harsh. I thought it was funny at the time. I mean, let's go Brandon. What?
You glance at your phone, what, 30?
Yeah, I had a few of those stickers. I did that. Remember that? People were putting them up on, you know, you'd go to fuel up your vehicle and it's pointing at the price. $6.39. We've got rain in 46 currently at Kello. This hour of the Greg Belfrage Show brought to you by the Window Shop of Mitchell, offering custom windows starting at $99 a month. Now, these are stories that are trending this morning. Well, the stock market has rallied after the president backed off his threat to fire Jerome Powell, and it made, the market jump immediately after the president had announced that and then kind of tapered off again. So as of this morning, the stock market, Dow, S&P 500, NASDAQ on tap for a lower open today after a strong two-day rally. So investors have had their fears kind of calmed here the last couple of days after the president's comments about Jerome Powell. Also, Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois, the number 2 Democrat in the Senate, announced yesterday he's not running for re-election. He said the decision of whether to run for re-election has not been easy. I truly love the job of being United States Senator, but in my heart, I know it's time to pass the torch. So I am announcing today that I will not be seeking re-election at the end of my term. He's 80 years old, Durbin is. I gotta say, honestly, I think it looks pretty good for somebody 80 years old. I don't think I look that good today, and I'm much younger than that. So 80 years old. Before serving in the Senate, he served in the House, representing Illinois from 1983 to 1997. So now he is saying will not be running for re-election. Also, Marco Rubio and Steve Witkoff pull out of a Ukraine ceasefire talks in London. So these are the talks that were going on in London, and the UK now is hosting scaled back talks after Rubio and Witkoff withdrew. And they said it was a scheduling conflict, and the two of them canceled in a last minute about face. And Politico says this underscores tensions between the Trump team and European allies. So Marco Rubio and Steve Witkoff deciding not to attend the Ukraine peace talks in London. Also, there are a lot of stories around this. One of the other stories trending is the vice president telling reporters in India, and he said the U.S. had offered Russia and Ukraine a very explicit proposal to end the war. And he said it's time for them to either say yes or for the U.S. to walk away from this process. We've engaged in an extraordinary amount of diplomacy, of on-the-ground work, he said. And he said the only way to really stop the killing is for the armies to both put down their weapons, to freeze this thing, and to get on with the business of actually building a better Russia and a better Ukraine, said the vice president. Meanwhile, Ukrainian forces have attacked a large Russian ammunition storage site. And this story is trending this morning. It's from the Kyiv Post. So the head of Ukraine Center for Countering Disinformation, and this is part of Ukraine's National Security and Defense Council, reported the explosion and said the site belonged to Russia's main missile and artillery directorate. And there are photos of a pretty big explosion. Also, the president said on Tuesday, he hinted that that he would be cutting China's tariffs substantially from 145%. These were comments he made on Tuesday. He said the rate won't be zero, but he was talking about a potential trade deal with China. And the president in the Oval Office said 145% is very high, and it won't be that high. It will come down substantially, but it won't be zero, the president said. So those comments are really getting a lot of attention, pretty widely reported on, which is why that story is trending today. A White House spokesperson said the president has been clear. China needs to make a deal with the United States. When decisions on tariffs are made, they will come directly from the president. Anything else is just pure speculation. Also, there are a couple of high-profile trials, murder trials, that are trending. One of them, a jury in Arizona, has found Lori Vallow Daybell guilty of conspiring to kill her late husband. She was convicted in 2023 of killing 2 of her own children. And now a jury in Arizona has found her guilty of conspiring to murder her late husband. Also, you've got the opening statements made this week in the retrial of Karen Reed, and a lot of reporting on that story. That has been trending for maybe about the last week. Jury selection last week, and the trial beginning then this week. And what it boils down to, NBC News says, angry girlfriend or victim of a cover-up. So her trial getting underway this week. European Union is cracking down on big tech. Apple and Meta have both been fined £700 million under the Digital Markets Act. I think Apple was fined 500 million euros and Meta 200 million in separate digital cases. Also, sadly, some deaths to share with you, and these are from the sporting world. Steve McMichael, the Chicago Bears Hall of Famer, he'd been battling ALS. He died at the age of 67. So he had entered hospice care and now sadly has passed away at the age of 67. That's Steve McMichael. Also, Mike Patrick, a play-by-play voice at ESPN for nearly 40 years, has died at the age of 80. He died of natural causes on Sunday in Virginia. And his death was confirmed earlier this week. Also trending this morning, comedian Larry David has penned a satirical essay titled My Dinner with Adolf for the New York Times. And what he's doing is he's mocking Bill Maher's recent trip to the White House. So Maher has been talking about his visit with Donald Trump and meeting Trump and so on. So now here comes Larry David with an essay, My Dinner with Adolf, of course, comparing Trump to Adolf Hitler. And I used to love Larry David. Seriously. And he ceased being funny to me a long time ago. I just can't laugh at him any longer. It's just, he's not funny to me, not funny to me. Also, federal government using racketeering laws to arrest 27 alleged members of Tren de Aragua. They've been indicted on charges ranging from racketeering, sex trafficking, narcotics, robbery, carjacking, firearms possession. This was on Tuesday. The indictments were the result of cooperation between the New York police and Homeland Security investigations. The indictment was used by Tom Holman, and New York City Mayor Eric Adams ridding the city of migrants who commit crimes. Holman said, today you see one step, one small step, many more steps to come to make this country safe and help Mayor Adams and the police commissioner in any way to rid this city of illegal alien public safety threats and national security threats. So again, you've got an indictment here and racketeering laws being used to arrest 27 alleged members of Tren de Aragua. Also, a Democrat judge in New Mexico. The story's been trending for the last few days. Or I should say, I have seen it. So I'm not surprised it's trending this morning. This Democrat judge in New Mexico resigned from the bench last month after immigration agents arrested an alleged Tren de Aragua gang member who was living in the home of the judge. He was living in the judge's home. So the illegal alien entered the U.S. in Eagle Pass, Texas, before being released on an immigration parole due to overcrowding, and then moved to New Mexico. And prosecutors in New Mexico, these are federal prosecutors, say he was illegally in possession of a firearm, has ties to Tren de Aragua, and this judge apparently housing him. Just crazy, man, the things that we see. Also, the Anti-Defamation League has reported that anti-Semitic crimes, including assaults and vandalism in the country, reached a horrifying level last year. He said the massive spike continues to rise following the October 7th, 2023 massacre against Israel. And it pointed to the number of 2024 anti-Semitic crimes exceeding any other annual tally in the past 46 years. Wow, that is absolutely amazing. And nearly 10,000 incidents of anti-Semitic assault, harassment, vandalism. You break that down, it means that more than 25 targeted anti-Jewish incidents in the United States per day, which means you got 25 a day. That's more than one an hour. Wow. Also, the World Economic Forum has launched a probe into their founder, Klaus Schwab. And they announced this yesterday, that this decision was made after consulting with legal counsel. And they said they take the allegation seriously and emphasize that they remain unproven. But they have launched a probe into Klaus Schwab. Also, new trial for Harvey Weinstein continues, and opening statements. This is at Harvey Weinstein's retrial. So opening statements began. We talked about this yesterday. It was a big story yesterday. It's trending this morning. Not much of a surprise. Elon Musk announcing on Tuesday that he plans to significantly scale back his role with Doge. And this was during a Tesla earnings call. If you missed it yesterday, Musk said his involvement with Doge would drop significantly beginning in May. And he says the bulk of their reform effort is mostly done, he said. But he said he also that he would remain involved. And he said if the president asks him, he would continue to do that. And he said he'll be scaling his work back to 1 or 2 days a week to devote his attention to Tesla. Tesla saw some has seen some dramatic losses. Also, you've got thousands of mourners arriving at St. Peter's Basilica to pay their respects to Pope Francis. And I was going through some of those stories this morning, and the folks just absolutely in tears and over the death of the Pope. Also, RFK Jr., the Secretary of Health and Human Services, directing food manufacturers to phase out 8 petroleum-based food dyes from cereals, sports drinks, and other grocery items. So there are 8 dyes that are being targeted. And he announced those the other day, and it's like red dye number 40, yellow number 5, and so on. So 8 different dyes that are being targeted. And is being applauded by health advocates, the move that he's undertaking. Also trending this morning, that the killing of civilians in Kashmir is a big story this week. India now suspending its treaty with Pakistan after this attack in Kashmir. And now remember, there were like 26 tourists that were killed and a number of others who were injured. It was really in a really, terrible, tragic situation. And that's a look at the stories trending this morning in Belf's News Gallery. 6:57, rain and 46. This hour of the Greg Belfrage Show, brought to you by the Window Shop of Mitchell, offering custom windows starting at $99 a month.
The most important viewpoint is yours. Hello.
Well, my friend, thanks so much for being here. Hope you'll come back. 9:30 is when we do the 4th hour each weekday. So I'll see you again then. And bring along a guest. I would appreciate it. Spread the word. Let others know about what we're doing. And I enjoy it. Numbers are going up on YouTube. So I thank all of you. I'll see you again soon. So long.
To stop the massive tax hike on small businesses.